district collector, or indeed by a court of law. Today, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India and the head of the Ajmer Dargah, one of the largest Sufi shrines in the country, both of them threw their weight behind the amendment bill, which is expected in Parliament later this week. The question then is, will it find enough numbers to pass muster in both houses, the lower house and the upper house, and will the opposition parties now drop their opposition to this and follow suit, given that it's non-Muslims too who are coming out in larger numbers and supporting the idea of some of the anti-constitutional provisions of the decades-old Waqf Act.
वक्फ में अमेंडमेंट की जरूरत है। देखिए, वक्फ का मतलब ये कतई नहीं है कि लोग ये कह रहे हैं कि मस्जिदें छीन जाएंगी, खानकाएं छीन जाएंगी, कब्रिस्तान छीन जाएंगी। ये कहना गलत है। हो सकता है कुछ सेक्शन से उनको प्रॉब्लम हो, ये ऐसे मत हो। ये डेमोक्रेसी का पार्ट है और सरकार को कोई जल्दबाजी नहीं है। सरकार ने बहुत तसल्ली से इस बिल को लाई थी। सरकार ने बाकायदा जेपीसी में ये बिल दिया। जेपीसी ने बहुत पेशेंटली सबको सुना है और उसके बाद में अभी बिल पेश करने जाएंगे। मुझे पूरा यकीन है कि ये बिल आने के बाद में वक्फ के मैटर में ट्रांसपेरेंसी आएगी और उसकी प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोटेक्ट होगी।
So prior to this bill being brought, it's likely to be brought before the lower house on Wednesday, there was a joint parliamentary committee which had dozens of opposition members, dozens of ruling party or treasury members whose singular job was to dive deeper into this bill. It's been labeled as a farce, a farcical exercise by many who were within the opposition, and particularly those members who were part of this joint parliamentary committee. There were 14 opposition MPs who squared off against the ruling bloc. They had 38 meetings, more than 3 dozen meetings. They clocked 111 hours of heated debate over a 5-month period. They also heard from 250 delegations. You think of various Waqf boards, state officials, Muslim groups, and they sifted through a staggering 1.5 crore public representations, at the end of which they came up with the Waqf Amendment Bill. That's a deluge of voices, and yet a consensus is very much elusive. It is nowhere in sight, despite the exhaustive consultations and debate that has been happening within the JPC before the bill has been brought forth in the floor of the House. Now, neither the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which is leading nationwide protests against the Waqf Amendment Bill, nor are the political opposition parties convinced about the merits of this bill or the integrity of those who are bringing this bill forth in the first place. The bill removes the recognition that's been long used by religious sites lacking formal documentation. Concerns within the community that are undocumented mosques and graveyards may lose protection. As per the draft bill, a designated officer, usually the district collector in this case, and not the Waqf tribunal, will decide if a property is government land or if it actually belongs to the Waqf board. Critics fear that there's a bias in favor of the state or the state government officials, besides questioning the qualification or the relevant experience of such an officer. The government has also allayed fears that this officer, being a public servant, is duty-bound to function with an objectivity and act as per the provisions of the law. The bill also permits non-Muslim board members as well as even the CEO of the new amended Waqf boards. Despite requiring legal expertise, Muslim bodies are opposing any non-Muslim presence on the Waqf boards. As per the original draft bill, the Waqf tribunal rulings could be up for legal scrutiny and could be challenged in a high court. This, of course, is different from what was envisioned in the previous Waqf Act. The concern that Muslim groups have raised is if it is to be challenged in high court and courts above that, then it would lead to prolonged litigation.
जो फैसले, जो कानून, जो संविधान में परिवर्तन भारतीय जनता पार्टी करती है, उससे पॉलिटिकल लाभ लेना चाहती है। उससे भारत का विकास, हिंदुस्तान का विकास नहीं होता। और अगर भारत का, हिंदुस्तान का विकास हो रहा होता, चाहे नोटबंदी के फैसले से, चाहे जीएसटी लागू करने के फैसले से, तो आज हमारे 80 करोड़ लोगों को राशन नहीं देना पड़ता।
कुछ ग्रुप है, खास करके कुछ पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के लोग और कुछ संगठन है, गिने चुने कुछ संगठन है, वो लोग समाज को गुमराह करने का कोशिश कर रहे हैं। वक्फ बिल में जो प्रावधान है उसको अच्छी तरह से पढ़ के फिर उसके बाद में तर्क रख करके अपना बात को बोलने से अच्छा है, लेकिन झूठ बोल करके समाज को गुमराह करने का प्रयास नहीं होना चाहिए।
So the Waqf Amendment Bill is expected to be tabled in the lower house on Wednesday. Top ministers have apprised their alliance partners of this development. When the bill is put to vote, the numbers are stacked in favour of the NDA. The BJP is confident of the full support of NDA allies. The JPC has taken care of their concerns. That is what the BJP top leadership feels. They're backing the bill in Parliament. These are parties, of course, the BJP leading that charge. The Shiv Sena, which is the Shinde faction of the Shiv Sena, the TDP and JDU, which are two critical NDA allies whose support is absolutely essential if this bill has to pass the Lok Sabha. Also the LJP, Ramvilas Paswan and Chirag Paswan's party, they are backing this bill as well. That would put this bill past the simple majority of 272. Those who oppose this include the Congress, which is the leading opposition party, the principal opposition party, and its various India bloc allies, the DMK, the TMC, the RJD, and then you have non-aligned opposition parties as well, YSRCP, the AIDMK, the BRS, also Sena UBT, NCP, SP, Samajwadi parties, all the left parties, the IUML, All India Muslim Ittehad Muslimin, which is Mr. Owaisi's party. They are also opposed to this Waqf Amendment Act. All right, I want to go for a straight face-off. BJP versus Congress. Mr. KJ Alphonse is former minister in the Modi government. Sujata Paul, spokesperson of the Congress, is also joining us. Mr. Alphonse, the contention that the opposition has raised, and almost all opposition parties from the Congress downwards are opposed to the Waqf Amendment Bill. They are saying that this is basically biased against Muslims. The introduction of non-Muslims into Waqf boards raises concerns about the decision-making authority of these boards. It also grants significant powers to government officials like district collectors as opposed to members of the Waqf. How would you redress these concerns?
See, I think let's look at the implementation of the Waqf Act for past so many years. Was it scientifically done? Who has benefited from the Waqf Act? Hundreds of acres, thousands of acres of land has been alienated by private individuals, all in the name of the Waqf Act. Crores of rupees have been misappropriated by the office bearers of the Waqf board and everybody involved. Who has benefited? Now, this act, which has been being implemented in the country for past so many years, has got so many discrepancies. This is against the fundamentals of what the Constitution has said. So this government has said that we need to bring in amendments to the Act so that we rectify these anomalies, so that it could be a just act as per the Constitution, that the constitutional right of other people are not infringed upon, that also whatever are the rights of the Muslim community are protected at the same time. So this amendment bill which is proposed is not against any community. It is not to appease any community for that matter. It is basically a very rational bill which has been introduced. Okay. I think all this is necessary because we cannot allow exploitation of the country in the name of of a particular act to appease a certain community, which has been done by the Congress, in the Shah Banu case. Such incidents have happened so many times during the Congress regime. This government says, let's rectify these anomalies so that we have a just society, and mostly it will benefit the Muslims themselves.
Let me ask Sujata Paul whether it is improving the diversity on these boards. For the first time, women are being included. For the first time, minorities within the Muslim community, the Shias, the Ahmadiyas, they are being included. And the most fundamental thing, ma'am, how can you have, if there is a property dispute or any dispute with relation to the Waqf Act, you could not go to a court of law. The decision of a Waqf tribunal was considered final and binding. In this amendment, it allows you to approach first a district collector, and if you are not satisfied with the decision of the district collector, you can approach a high court. That provision was not there under the Waqf Act up until now.
The fact is, Zakat, that when you talk about a JPC which was constituted, after which the facts which came out were that the clauses were not discussed. The 44 amendments were not discussed, which had been brought in earlier. Now, if these have not been discussed clause by clause, the question is, why is the government not allowing that? First, the discussion has been flawed. There are various points which are flawed, but giving 1.5 days to read the document, which is a 428-page report, it's not correct. This is a democracy where the minorities need to be protected by the majority. This will not turn out into a majority tyranny just because the BJP has the numbers. The point is, what is the JDU and TDP stand? We must wait for that also. We know
they
very well
both
that
made it clear that they will vote for the amendments to the Waqf Act. They are not opposed to the amendments to the Waqf Act.
But they should make it clear whether they are okay with giving more powers to those who are encroaching on the properties. You're giving more powers to the state government officers, to the district collectors. And if you look at the entire thing, the Waqf by user concept was brought in by and developed by the Honorable Supreme Court. So if the courts have intervened in the past and brought in a system which has been strong, is it not very clear that because the minorities are being demonized, defamed, and there is this propaganda which has been built around them by the BJP, this is only a strategy for elections.
So let me ask Mr. Alphonse that today you're targeting properties that come under the purview of the Waqf Act. You know, the Catholic institutions own a lot of land across the length and breadth of this country. Tomorrow, what is to stop the government from bringing in an amendment targeting those properties? There are other religious charitable institutions that hold a lot of land in this country. The opposition is saying that why is the government using this as an excuse, as a premise to go after certain minority communities? What would you say to that?
I think it's very simple. I don't think the Christian community has ever been accused by any other community or by any other individuals in the history of this country of grabbing somebody else's land. Is there any case? There is no case. Take for example something which is a big discussion issue in Kerala, the Munambam issue, which was discussed in this channel also earlier. I had participated. Hundreds of acres of land involving close to 1,000 families in Kerala, which was bought from the Farouk College management under perfectly legal documents, all the money paid, everything paid. People are living in that land. Now the Waqf board is claiming that this is their property. Now tomorrow they can march into the parliament, old parliament, new parliament, and say this is Waqf property. See, the act fundamentally is deeply flawed, and the constitutional provisions, as you said earlier, of the Waqf tribunal being the ultimate arbitrator for deciding things, all this is not a transparent process. That is why the government said, let's have a more transparent process, let's involve more people, let's bring in women into this kind of an institution, let's bring in other segments of the Muslim community itself, so that we have a fairer decision on the issue. You see, the days of authoritarian regime are over. The entire Waqf Act was very authoritarian.
Okay.
And it was absolutely prejudiced against other communities.
You know, ma'am, the issue is that look at what Mr. Alphonse referred to, the case in Munambam in Kerala, where for centuries there were these fishermen and their descendants who were staying there on legally bought property. They had papers for it. And then one fine day, the Waqf board came and said, no, this is Waqf property. The very clause or the very idea of Waqf by user was discriminatory towards people who had perfectly legitimate papers to prove their claims to a particular property. You never had this by user clause for any other charitable institution that holds property or any other religious institution that holds property. And this is just one example. There are people who have claimed, Parliament building belongs to Waqf. There are people who have claimed Eden Gardens belongs to Waqf. All kinds of bizarre claims, only because they were taking refuge behind this provision of Waqf by user, which was abused by many individuals to usurp property.
You're talking about the Munambam issue, but there are many other issues also. Now, I just heard the BJP spokesperson talk about the Christian community has never grabbed anybody's property. They have never been blamed. Let me make it very clear that the CNI has been accused many times of this. There has been action taken. Probably the BJP spokesperson comes from the south and he's not really aware of what has happened in the north. And the demonizing of minority is not simply, demeaning, derogating the Muslims. It is also going to come to the Christians at one point. So let's make no mistake there. But you were talking about the powers of the tribunals. This is a system which has been formed. There is a system which we have been following, and we have made sure that the minorities also feel strengthened. Now, when you talk about a complaint which comes in regarding anybody's Waqf property,
yes,
what will happen if somebody says that this belongs to the government? Immediately, the officer of the state government, acting under the pressure of the government, will make sure that that is de-recognized. Is that going to be fair? If somebody merely says that no, this is not Waqf, this is government property, it will be de-recognized without any procedure followed.
No.
What is this?
You can then challenge it. You can then challenge that decision of a district collector. If you are an affected party, you can always go to a high court and challenge it. That is the amendment that's been brought forth in the new Waqf Act. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. I have to wrap up, ma'am. I'm completely out of time.
We are making it more complicated.
I'm sure we will have more opportunities to debate this. We're expecting this amendment bill to be brought forth as early as in the next couple of days, because the budget session of Parliament concludes by the end of this week. In the meanwhile, Mr. KJ Alphonse and Sujata Paul, thank you very much for joining us here on Brass Tacks. Well, talking about the Waqf Amendment Bill that is likely to come up later this week, it's not just the Ajmer Dargah that's rallying support for the Waqf Bill. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of India issued a statement on the draft legislation. In its statement, they have said that it is a reality that certain provisions in the existing Waqf Act are inconsistent with the Constitution and secular democratic values of the country. The Catholic Bishops' Conference has also cited the example of Kerala, where the Waqf Board had invoked these provisions to declare the ancestral residential properties of more than 600 fishermen families in the Munambam region as Waqf land. The organization noted that over the past 3 years, this issue has escalated into a complex legal dispute. The bishop's body has also said that the fact remains that only a legal amendment can provide a permanent solution, and this must be recognized by people's representatives. The Catholic Bishops' Conference also urged political parties and legislators to adopt an unbiased and constructive approach to the issue. The statement further said that any provisions or laws that contradict the principles of the Constitution must be amended. At the same time, the rights of religious minorities, as guaranteed by the Constitution, must be safeguarded. So what exactly is this Munambam issue? The coastal village of Munambam in Cochin is the main reason why the Catholic bishops are backing the Waqf bill. The village is home to over 600 families, many of them from backward and scheduled caste communities, basically fisher folks. In 1902, the King of Travancore leased about 400 acres of land and 60 acres of water, known as Munambam, to a Kutchi Memon. Years later, the trader's son, the son-in-law, registered this land, including the areas where the fishermen were residing for over a century. This registered land was then handed over to the management of the Farooq College in Kozhikode. It's a very popular college in the northern part of Kerala. This was in 1950. It was given as a gift deed. It was registered with a clause that the management should not use the land for any purpose other than educational activities. The word Waqf was written in that document. The 6-decade-old land dispute started in 1962 when the residents contested the Farooq College's ownership of the land in Munambam. The legal fight ultimately reached the Kerala High Court, which in 1975 upheld the Farooq College's claim. A settlement then happened between the Farooq College and the residents. Like I said, there are a large number of them, over 600, which allowed the residents to buy the land that they occupied. And this happened between a period of 1983 and 1993. The college, in fact, got paid about 33 lakh rupees from various sale deeds from these 600-odd families. Then in 2009, the government appointed a Nisar panel which submitted its report that the Munambam land was Waqf property. In 2019, the Kerala Waqf Board formally registered the property as Waqf property, asserting their claim over areas of Munambam, Cherai and Pallikal islands. All of this happens to be in the Ernakulam district. In 2022, the residents were told that they could not pay land tax on these properties because the property does not belong to them, it belongs to the Waqf Board. Following this, the state government then intervened and then allowed them to pay tax. However, no formal order was issued by the state government. And then 2 years later, in 2024, the residents there, more than 600 fisher folks families, were forced to vacate the land that they had legally purchased between the 80s and 90s from the Farooq College. They have no tenancy rights, they have no ownership rights, and they were asked to leave overnight because it had been deemed as Waqf property. I want to go across to Father Robinson Rodriguez. He's the PRO of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of India. Thank you very much, Father Rodriguez. You have welcomed the amendments to the existing Waqf Act. On what basis is the Catholic Bishops' Conference welcoming this and asking legislators and parliamentarians to apply their mind and to take an unbiased view of this legislation?
Yeah. First of all, let me wish happy Eid to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. It is a happy occasion. We wish them a very happy Eid. As per your question goes, it's not that we have welcomed, but we have said that if the Waqf boards, this Amendment Act is coming forward, then all the parties should think about the constitutional rights of all people and accordingly go ahead, keeping in mind the problem that is going on in Munambam, the people, their land, etc. So all those problems, keeping in mind, this issue has come up.
But Father Rodriguez, you also represent a minority institution. The Catholic Bishops' Conference is backing this bill, by and large, from whatever you said, singularly because of this one issue in Munambam in Kerala. Many are asking, can you back an all India bill which has so many ramifications basis one issue which may be a localized issue?
It is not that one or two families. There are hundreds and hundreds of families there are going to be impacted. They are impacted, and those who are staying there, for decades they have been staying there, and their ancestors have stayed there, and all of a sudden now you ask them that the land belongs to us, and then ask them to move out. It is not. It is against human rights. Basically, a human right issue.
Father Rodriguez, your statement also says that rights of minorities need to be upheld. So, how would you speak to the concern that this is interference in religious matters? Today, it happens to be Muslim groups who are the aggrieved party. Tomorrow, it could be the properties that are held by the Catholic Church. So, how are you so sure that this is not an infringement of minority rights?
Catholic Church is very clear with its property, all its land. Our properties belong to societies. Each property belongs to one or other society. Land documents are clear. We have purchased these properties. Some purchased, some are allotted, etc. And all the properties, proper documents are there, and these properties belong to the societies, NGOs, etc. So there is no question of property which we have gone and sitting on anyone's or no man's land, and all of a sudden someone will come and tell us to go away from there. Having said that, we have also said in the press release about keeping in mind the minority rights. It should not go against the minority rights. The most important thing is constitutional values and the minority rights which we received from the Constitution.
All right. Father Robinson Rodriguez, spokesperson for the Catholic Bishops' Conference, thank you very much for joining us here on Brass Tacks. I want to move on to the other story. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee made a recent remark which has triggered a political uproar. She was speaking at an Eid event. Mamata Banerjee accused the BJP of distorting Hinduism for political gain. She said that she follows the dharma of Swami Vivekananda and not the BJP's dharma, calling it Ganda Dharma or dirty faith. Mamata Banerjee has said that people must unite and not fall for provocations made by the BJP and RSS, which may fuel communal riots in a peace-loving state like Bengal. Banerjee also hit out at the BJP, asking if they have problems with minorities, then will they change the constitution of the country? BJP launched a blistering attack against the West Bengal Chief Minister. The party claimed that Mamata Banerjee was trying to stir animosity between communities, warning that such tactics would ultimately backfire on her politically.
देखो स्वामी विवेकानंद ने क्या बोला, हम रामकृष्ण का धर्म मानता है, स्वामी विवेकानंद को धर्म मानता है, लेकिन हम जानबूझ के एक गंदा धर्म जो ईश्वर ने बनाया, जो एक जुमला पार्टी ने बनाया, वो धर्म को हम नहीं मानता है, वो तो हिंदू धर्म का खिलाफ में है।
टीएमसी मतलब तुष्टीकरण मुझे चाहिए, ये स्पष्ट हो चुका है। ममता बनर्जी को भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था की ग्रोथ से भी इश्यू है, और अब वो जब ईद का समय है तो मुस्लिम वोट बैंक को संबोधन करते हुए कहती है कि बीजेपी हिंदू धर्म को गंदा धर्म बता देगी। क्या इस प्रकार की टिप्पणी और किसी धर्म या मजहब के बारे में की जा सकती है?
जो ये भाजपा हिंदू धर्म के नाम पे वो भेदाभेद का पॉलिटिक्स करते हैं, हिंदू धर्म के नाम पे वो वोट मार्केटिंग करते हैं, गंदा बात बोलते हैं, गंदे तरीके से मानुष को डिवाइड, सोसाइटी को डिवाइड धर्म के नाम पे करते हैं। हम लोग ऐसा उसका डिस्टॉर्टेड हिंदुइज्म हम लोग नहीं सपोर्ट करता।
Now, the BJP is seeing a larger pattern behind such comments. They have accused the India bloc of deriding Sanatan Dharma on various occasions in the past. They cite the time when the Gandhis skipped the Ram Temple inauguration despite the Congress party being invited for it. They also did not show up at the Mahakumbh, which concluded a few weeks ago, when the Congress chief Mallikarjun Kharge mocked the Mahakumbh Snan, calling it the stage for competitive politics. The Congress also kept silent when Mamata Banerjee used the slur Mrityu Kumbh to refer to the stampede that happened at the Mahakumbh. The Congress opposed scrapping of the Places of Worship Act that was passed in 1991. The Congress maintains that Hindu temples must remain under state control. In fact, the former Maharashtra Congress chief Nana Patole had called for the purification of the Ram Temple if the India bloc came to power. The DMK also called for the eradication of Sanatan Dharma, dubbing it similar to dengue and malaria, which can't be treated but it needs to be eradicated.
आज जो ममता बनर्जी जी फेस कर रही हैं बंगाल में, जिस तरह का भारतीय जनता पार्टी झूठा प्रचार कर रही है बंगाल में और बिहार में, इसी तरह का गंदा प्रचार, घटिया प्रचार भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने यूपी में भी किया था।
Now, Mohanlal's much anticipated film L2 Empuraan has ignited a storm of political controversy. The actor has now issued an apology following the backlash over references to the Gujarat riots in 2002. In a Facebook post, he apologized to his fans and he said that such content would be removed and expressed regret for any distress caused to anyone. As per reports, around 17 cuts will now be made to Empuraan. These reportedly include scenes which depict violence against women and certain riot sequences that reference back to Gujarat 2002. Additionally, the antagonist, the main villain, his name is Baba Bajrangi, and that is expected to be changed. Some dialogues will also be muted. The revised version will undergo censorship approval by the CBFC, and it is expected to be screened starting next week. Meanwhile, the director of the film, Prithviraj Sukumaran, his mother, Mallika Sukumaran, who also happens to be an actor in her own right, expressed disappointment on social media over the backlash that her son has been receiving, particularly the accusations that the director allegedly misled superstar Mohanlal and the film's producers. In her post on social media, Mallika Sukumaran has also clarified that Prithviraj did not deceive anyone and that all key members of the project were involved in the approval of the script and revisions that were made. She said it is very sad that some people are trying to make her son a scapegoat without the knowledge of Mohanlal or the producers of the film. Meanwhile, politics can't be too far behind. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan took to X, condemning the communal hate campaign against the film and its creators, both Mohanlal and Prithviraj included. He described it as a disturbing trend of silencing dissent through coercion and intimidation, calling for unity to defend creative freedom as well as democracy itself.
Empuraan was one of the most awaited movies from the Malayalam film industry this year, but since its release on March 27, the movie has been receiving a lot of flack. Actors Mohanlal and Prithviraj has been at the receiving end of this online criticism, especially from right-wing groups including supporters of the BJP and Sangh Parivar. Their main criticism was that the movie shows one party and one religion in a bad light, and it also has references to the Gujarat riots. So as there were several criticisms. Initially, the BJP had maintained that it is a movie and everybody has a freedom of speech and expression. even the actor, the director, as well as the people who watched the movie. But since criticism was heavy, the producers decided to make certain cuts to the movie. Later, Mohanlal put out a Facebook post expressing regret for the distress that has been caused to his loved ones and confirmed that there will be cuts to the movie. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan watched the movie and came out in support of the movie, saying that forcing filmmakers to go through cuts is something which is against freedom of expression, it's against democracy and the constitution. This particular movie, there are also criticisms against the CPIM, the Congress, as well as the Chief Minister himself. Even after that, we saw the Chief Minister, the leader of opposition, coming out and supporting the movie, saying that pressurizing the filmmakers to cut certain parts or something which is against the BJP or the Sangh Parivar is not a good way. It is not good for democracy. It is not good for the creative freedom and freedom of expression. So this is what both the Congress and the CPIM have maintained. Now, there has been a lot of attack on actor Prithvi Raj also. Prithvi Raj's mother and actor Mallika Sukumaran has also come out and spoken about this. She had put out a detailed Facebook post stating that some people are trying to attack and make Prithvi Raj a scapegoat in this entire thing. She said that it's not just him, it's collective responsibility.
And staying with Kerala and the Congress party, now for a while Rahul Gandhi has been taking potshots at the Modi government for not putting India's interests first by pursuing an allegedly infirm foreign policy. But the Congress got a reality check when Shashi Tharoor today once again held up a mirror by praising Modi diplomacy. The Congress MP Shashi Tharoor lauded the Narendra Modi government's efforts, this time for its vaccine diplomacy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tharoor highlighted how India leveraged its status as the world's vaccine manufacturing hub, significantly enhancing its soft power on the global stage. In a column written for an English magazine, Dr. Tharoor said that Vaccine Maitri was a powerful example of international leadership that is rooted in responsibility and solidarity. By delivering made-in-India vaccines to over 100 countries around the world, India demonstrated its capacity to extend a helping hand when it mattered most. Now, this is just the latest comment from Shashi Tharoor that breaks away from the official Congress line. Back in 2014, in a surprise praise for Narendra Modi, Shashi Tharoor had said that the opposition would be churlish in ignoring the voices of inclusive outreach by the new Prime Minister. 5 years later, in 2019, Mr. Tharoor once again praised Prime Minister Modi, saying that he should be commended whenever he says or does the right thing, arguing that this would actually lend credibility to the opposition's criticisms when the Prime Minister is wrong. Shashi Tharoor even praised the centre when Kerala got its first Vande Bharat train, saying that progress must be beyond politics and that the government has proved the same. Shashi Tharoor once again praised Modi for his outreach to the Islamic world, describing it as exemplary. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor shot a rare praise for Prime Minister after President Donald Trump described the Indian Prime Minister as a better negotiator than him. The Congress MP just this past month acknowledged that he was left with egg on his face for opposing India's neutral stand on the Russia-Ukraine war when it began in 2022. Let's listen in to Shashi Tharoor.
I'm still wiping the egg off my face because I was the one person in the parliamentary debate who actually criticized the Indian position at the time, back in February 22. 3 years later, it does look like I'm the one with egg on my face, because clearly the policy has meant that India has actually a prime minister who can hug both the president of Ukraine and the president of Moscow 2 weeks apart and be accepted in both places. And therefore, India is in a position where it can make a difference to a lasting peace, if it was so required, in ways that very few countries would be able to.
Shashi Tharoor has a way with words, but his words are now come to haunt the Congress. Over the last 10 days, there have been 3 instances on which his words have come to make his party feel awkward. For example, when he gave a thumbs up and said it was an egg on the face moment for him for having raised doubts over India's handling of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. The second, when he said that one should be happy that Donald Trump has praised our electoral system and the election process. Now remember, Rahul Gandhi has always raised doubts over EVMs being hacked and of false voter list. But what has now happened latest in an article written by Shashi Tharoor is when he's given a thumbs up to the COVID vaccine or COVID diplomacy. Now this has been the larger point which has been raised by Rahul Gandhi whenever he's attacked the Prime Minister and the government that it was a case of COVID mismanagement. The question which then arises is that what next? Will Rahul Gandhi be losing out on Shashi Tharoor? Will Shashi Tharoor leave the Congress to join the BJP? Well, I would say it's early days yet, because if you look at the political spectrum in Kerala, the BJP perhaps doesn't have much of a say there. Of course, BJP wants to make inroads. But remember, we said the same thing when it came to Jyotiraditya Scindia, Jitin Prasad and many others. There's no doubt that Shashi Tharoor has cultivated a personality for himself. He's now grown beyond the Congress party in many extent. Many feel that if he contests as an independent, should he contest the next Lok Sabha elections and the party does not give him the ticket, then he really has nothing much to worry about. But Shashi Tharoor is someone which the Congress party is unable to silence, despite the fact that Rahul Gandhi in a meeting told all of them to speak in one language and not to speak out of turn. But Shashi Tharoor is also someone who the Congress party finds very, very difficult to ignore, and thereby lies the dilemma of the Congress vis-a-vis Shashi Tharoor.
India has slammed Bangladesh interim leader Muhammad Yunus for his provocative remarks, accusing him of using India to gain favour with China. Confirming CNN News 18's exclusive report, top government sources have rejected Professor Yunus's claims that India's northeastern states are landlocked. They've called the statement factually incorrect and demanded a retraction. Yunus's recent meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping has further raised concerns here in South Block. Sources say that the meeting was aimed at securing the support of Beijing, with Yunus requesting lower interest rates on Chinese loans, as well as fee waivers for projects like the Peara port, which is 70% Chinese funded. India has condemned the remarks, calling them a blatant attempt to undermine India's sovereignty, while at the same time furthering China's debt trap diplomacy. The government maintains that the Northeast is well connected through legal treaties with Bangladesh, dismissing Muhammad Yunus's comments as deliberate misinformation.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters, they are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean for all this region. So this opens up a huge possibility. So this could be an extension of the Chinese economy, build things, produce things, market things, bring things to China, bring it out to the whole rest of the world.
Indian intelligence agencies believe that Bangladesh will be the new Sri Lanka as far as China is concerned. Yunus met with Xi Jinping in Beijing. This was around business opportunities between both countries. Muhammad Yunus apparently requested Chinese assistance in relocating some manufacturing industries to Bangladesh. Yunus wanted China to reduce interest rates on Chinese loans from the current 3% to anywhere between 1 to 2%. He also wanted China to waive off its commitment fees for Chinese-funded projects in Bangladesh. China, which is Bangladesh's 4th largest lender with $7.5 billion in loans, was also asked to support various development projects in Dhaka. Bangladesh's acknowledgement of the GDI, even without full participation, is a diplomatic victory for China. This reflects Bangladesh's desperation to ease its financial burden, while at the same time continuing to leverage Chinese investment. China sees Bangladesh's location in Southeast Asia and makes that a key partner for China in expanding its regional influence, and especially for its influence against India in the South Asian region. By offering loans and investments at cheaper prices, China aims to deepen Bangladesh's economic reliance on Beijing. Strengthening ties with Bangladesh helps China counter India's influence in the South Asian region. Now, here's why Muhammad Yunus is desperate to rally support of China. Bangladesh economically has been pretty badly hit since the protests last year, which toppled the duly elected democratic government of Sheikh Hasina of the Awami League. Number one, corruption allegations. There are massive allegations against the interim government and the advisors of Professor Yunus by none less than the sitting army chief, whose video clip went viral recently on the misuse of public resources. There's also the concern around law and order and the deteriorating law and order situation, with rising instances of looting, murder, arson, and militancy. Then economically, the textile industry, which contributes anywhere between a quarter to the third of Bangladesh's GDP, many factories have been shut in the last year or so because of the political upheaval. More than 140 garment factories have shut since the 5th of August. There's also tensions between the political establishment and the army. The government's comments on the army recently have led to distrust amongst officials. The army and the government are at odds, causing instability. The army chief's public comments recently also went viral. Also, the foreign policy towards the region. Professor Yunus has struggled to maintain strong international ties, particularly with India and with the new US dispensation under Donald Trump in the new White House, and therefore that seems to have really encumbered him in.
In August, Mohammad Yunus said something similar, but this time he said it in Beijing. China investing in Bangladesh should be a concern for India. But here Mohammad Yunus is linking 7 states of Northeast with no sea access, in China investing in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is the only guardian of ocean, has only to do with warmongering, nothing else. Many are also viewing it as Yunus is not liking India-China relations going back to normal. Zaka, fact is, Yunus is seen as darling of Democrats, but since Trump came to power, he is not getting same support which he used to get before. So he is in hurry to mend ties with both India and China. He visited China and sought appointment to meet Prime Minister Modi in Bangkok on the sidelines of BIMSTEC summit. Also, Zaka, let's not forget, Yunus's failed policies have started impacting people in Bangladesh. More than 140 garment factories have closed in 7 months. 1 lakh people have gone out of job. Crime rate is all-time high. Army is disliking Yunus, and he and his advisors are now facing heat of corruption charges. So to remain in power, and to remain in power, only option left with him is to make such statements so that he remains relevant. Zaka, fact is, Yunus has sought PM Modi's appointment, but not once he has given efforts to create atmosphere conducive for the meeting. We are still awaiting response from the government of India on the statement he has made in Beijing.
In exactly 48 hours' time, Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs will kick in, and India and the world are bracing for it. Is there no escape room from this reciprocal tax? Trump says he's going to charge the world what the world charges American products, whether it is farm produce, to motorcycles, to bourbon whiskey. 3 days of negotiations last week between India and the United States revolved around a new bilateral trade agreement, which both sides have agreed to clinch by the fall of this year. But is that going to be enough for India to escape the impact of these tariffs? I do some digging of the numbers to find out just how badly India may be affected by the reciprocal tariffs, which will kick in later this week. The Trump administration's decision to impose sweeping tariffs has reignited global trade tensions. This has far-reaching consequences for economies, industries, and for diplomatic relations. These measures include a 25% tariff on all auto imports and expanded duties on steel and aluminum products into the US. All of this combined signals a return to aggressive protectionism that could reshape America's trade with the rest of the world. And later this week, from the 2nd of April, there will be what Trump calls reciprocal tariffs. Many in the Trump orbit are calling this America's Liberation Day.
It goes into effect April 2nd. We start collecting on April 3rd. We're going to make it all countries, and we're going to make it very lenient. I think people are going to be very surprised. It'll be, in many cases, less than the tariff that they've been charging us for decades.
President Trump's latest tariff regime targets varying levels of severity. Canada and Mexico, America's closest trading partners, face 25% tariffs on all imports. The European Union, too, is going to be subject to similar rates across all imports. China, which is a perennial focus of Trump's trade tactics, will see a 20% tariff on all its exports to the US, alongside the elimination of de minimis treatment for smaller shipments. Steel and aluminum tariffs have also been added to 25% on all imports into America. These measures are all intended to protect American industry, but it comes at the cost of higher consumer prices and strained diplomatic ties. The auto industry stands out as one of the most heavily affected sectors because of the Trump tariffs. The 25% tariffs on imported vehicles and auto parts is expected to add thousands of dollars to the existing price of cars that are manufactured outside of the US. This policy disproportionately impacts middle-class consumers, as many affordable car models are produced abroad and imported into the US. Automakers have already begun shifting a large part of their production lines to mitigate these costs. General Motors has already accelerated its move with manufacturing electric vehicles domestically in the US.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%.
The financial markets have responded negatively to the announcement of these auto tariffs, particularly in sectors that are directly impacted by these new duties. Auto stocks have declined significantly since the month of February, reflecting investor concerns about rising costs and reduced consumer demand. Dealers have also begun stockpiling inventory ahead of the tariffs implementation starting 2nd of April, leading to temporary surges in imports. In addition to market volatility, consumers are also bracing themselves for higher prices. The tariffs on steel and aluminum will increase production costs for almost all industries, from construction to electronics. Economists predict inflationary pressures as companies pass on these costs to consumers, further straining household budgets. While tariffs dominate the headlines, Trump has also intensified his criticism of non-tariff barriers, or NTBs. Now, Trump views these NTBs as covert protectionist measures employed by other countries. NTBs include import quotas, technical standards, and local content requirements that make it difficult for foreign goods to compete in the domestic market in the US. For example, India has historically used NTBs when it comes to high dairy import duties, as well as stringent certification requirements for agricultural products, as it tries to shield its domestic industry. Countries use non-tariff barriers strategically to protect sensitive sectors or to promote domestic growth. However, these measures often lead to trade disputes and retaliatory action. Trump's focus on non-tariff barriers reflects his broader goal of leveling the playing field for American exporters by dismantling what he perceives as unfair trade practices. India has found itself at the center of Trump's tariff campaign because of its high import duties in certain sectors. Last week, there were 3 days of talks between US representatives led by Brendan Lynch and Indian Commerce Ministry officials, with the aim of addressing these issues while at the same time trying to avert a full-blown trade war. Progress has been made in several areas, including mutual recognition of agricultural and pharmaceutical standards, as well as the establishment of a framework for clinching a bilateral trade agreement later this year.
India is one of the highest tariffing nations in the world. You know that. I know. Thank you for shaking your head, but it's brutal. It's brutal. They're very smart, and he's a very smart man and a great friend of mine, actually. And we had very good talks. I think it's going to work out very well between India and our country. Very, very well. And I want to say you have a great Prime Minister.
Significant disagreements are still unresolved between Delhi and Washington. The US has demanded greater access to India's dairy market as well as its medical devices sector. These are areas where India has traditionally maintained higher barriers. Meanwhile, India is seeking exemptions from Trump's new tariffs by offering concessions in other areas, like reducing motorcycle import duties on Harley-Davidsons and reducing duties for bourbon whiskey. India faces an uphill battle in securing exemptions from Trump's tariffs before they kick in on the 2nd of April. While both sides have expressed optimism about reaching a deal by the fall of 2025, contentious issues like agricultural market access could derail these negotiations. India is hoping that its willingness to cut tariffs on certain goods will appease Trump's administration without compromising its domestic industry. The stakes are high for both countries. For India, avoiding these tariffs are crucial to protecting its export-driven sectors like textiles and engineering goods. For the United States, maintaining strong trade relations with India aligns with its broader geopolitical goal, that is to counter China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. The clock is literally ticking for both Washington and for Delhi.
Hello.
Rescue workers in Myanmar's quake-hit capital pulled this man alive from the rubble after over 40 hours trapped in the wreckage of a 3-story building. He was miraculously without major injuries and is in a stable condition. While this man was lucky, many more are feared still trapped across the country, and the death toll from Friday's 7.7 magnitude quake, one of Myanmar's strongest in a century, continued to rise. The military government said on Sunday more than 1,700 people had been killed, with over 3,000 injured and hundreds still missing. Experts have estimated the death toll could top 10,000 and losses could exceed the country's annual economic output. Russian rescue teams touched down in the capital Naypyidaw, bringing with them a mobile hospital before heading to hard-hit Mandalay near the epicenter of the quake. Eyewitness footage showed the extensive damage in Mandalay. Reuters was able to verify the location and date of the video. Aid workers and residents said scores of people there were feared trapped under collapsed buildings, and most could not be reached or pulled out without heavy machinery. Thailand, India and China were among Myanmar's neighbours that have also sent relief materials and teams, along with aid and personnel from Malaysia and Singapore. Critical infrastructure, including bridges, highways, airports and railways across the country, lie damaged, slowing humanitarian efforts. In some areas near the epicentre, residents told Reuters that government assistance was scarce, leaving people to fend for themselves. The devastation piles more misery on Myanmar, already in chaos from a civil war that grew out of a nationwide uprising after a 2021 military coup ousted the elected government. The opposition National Unity Government, which includes remnants of the previous administration, said anti-junta militias under its command would pause all offensive military actions for 2 weeks from Sunday. In neighbouring Thailand, authorities said dozens of people remained trapped under the debris of a collapsed Bangkok skyscraper that was under construction when the quake hit. Rescue workers used drones and sniffer dogs to hunt for survivors, but only bodies had been retrieved so far. Some relatives and friends of the missing and trapped construction workers broke down as they waited for news.
If hell had a name, it might be Sagae, ground zero of Myanmar's worst earthquake in more than 100 years. Stories and images are just now beginning to trickle out. The destruction as awful as we imagined, maybe worse. The heroes are everyday people, like Popo, a kindergarten teacher. She was with her students when the massive earthquake hit.
On that date of the accident, we were able to evacuate all the children. Our many children and teachers in some school lost their lives due to the earthquake.
Popo's school is in Mandalay, Myanmar's second largest city. Her home is across the river in Sagae, a historic city known for ancient pagodas and monasteries, many of them now in ruins. She says 80% of the city is gone. The old Sagae Bridge collapsed, cutting off aid, leaving survivors to fend for themselves. Even first responders are powerless. The fire station flattened, trucks crushed beneath the rubble. About 200 miles away, Myanmar's famed Inle Lake, almost unrecognizable. Entire villages submerged. So many iconic homes on stilts collapsed into the water. Some here wonder if the world has forgotten them. In Mandalay, near the quake's epicenter, a moment of hope. Big brother, we are coming for you, he says. We found you. Your heroes are here. After this, we will sit and sip tea. Against all odds, one life saved. Not everyone is so lucky. Minutes later, another powerful aftershock. The remaining structure gave way. Just like that, gone. In the capital, Naypyidaw, a small miracle.
Hello.
44 hours after the quake, rescuers from Singapore pull a survivor from the rubble. A rare bright spot in the grim search for any sign of life. Hope of finding more buried survivors, all but gone. Back near Ground Zero, Popo says no rescues are happening. Sagae is almost totally cut off. Survivors are desperate for food, clean water, medical supplies. Every passing hour brings more uncertainty, more heartbreak. So much pain being felt right now in Myanmar and here hundreds of miles away in Bangkok, where the around-the-clock search through that pile of rubble continues. People are here holding out hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll find somebody who's still alive in all of that, even though as each hour passes, that becomes less and less likely.
Viewers, who is opposing the Waqf Amendment Bill the most? Look carefully.